I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's now 5 o'clock. And with that, I would like the acknowledgement of the traditional lands from Trustee Burgess, if she doesn't mind.
Thank you. We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by Indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenni Lenape, and the allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Huron-Wendat peoples and the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, Ottawa, Potawatomi. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis.
Thank you, Trustee Burgess. For attendance, we have all policy members in attendance tonight. We have. Can I have approval of the agenda? I understand we have an addition D2 on it. Can I have approval of the addenda with the addition, Trustee Cook? Trustee Burgess?
So D1 would be approval of the agenda. D2, there's personal and confidential information. I would also move that we acknowledge G1, which is a delegation. So with those amendments, I would support.
All in support. Okay, with that, we're going to move into private session just for a short while. We expect to be back in about 15 minutes. back a lot quicker. And with that, I'll have my Vice Chair Julia Burgess bring us results of that meeting.
Madam Chair, there's no action at all arising from the committee of the Policy and Bylaw Standing Committee in private session.
Thank you for that. But that will, any declarations of conflict of interest tonight? None. Approval of the minutes from the Policy and Bylaw? I thought you said, Trustee Burgess.
Thanks, Madam Chair. It's just to make it a little clearer. It's on our page 3 of the minutes. And it just says twice the vote was called and was defeated and the vote was called and was carried. That's true, but I would like the words, the vote was called on the amendment and it was defeated. And then I would like to add the words on the main motion in between called and on the second line. So the vote was called on the amendment and it was defeated. The vote was called on the main motion and it was carried. Just to make it really clear for somebody who's reading.
Thank you. That makes it much clearer. Is that okay? I also have just a small spelling one under 1-2 on the orange sheet for tonight.
Oh.
On the orange sheet for tonight under 1-2. That policy and regulation, community use of schools facility, and then it's a bracket CUS. Is that bus rental?
Community use of schools.
Community use of schools?
Okay. And rentals.
Okay, yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So with that little change, do we have approval of the minutes? Moved, seconded. Thank you. All in support? As amended. Yeah. And now we'll go to our delegation for this evening, Mr. Pelko.
Good to go? All right. Good evening. I'm Jeremy Pelko. I'll be speaking on public consultation. The presumption with solicited input, comments, complaints, or feedback of any kind is that the requester will seriously review the responses, sincerely consider them, discuss how they may be used and or addressed, then take appropriate action. It is my objective assertion that the majority of the trustees on the GECDSB, this board, choose to ignore the public. This is quite ironic and mind-blowing, considering you have no position as trustees without public consultation and feedback. It is the very foundation of becoming and serving as a public trustee. My observations and experiences with this board and administration have been that only certain preferred feedback is seriously reviewed, sincerely considered, and then action taken. Given the limited time constraint and policy topic restrictions, I'll focus on one recent example. This is arguably one of the most egregious examples as it pertains to regulation RAD 65, gender identity and gender expression in schools. The public consultation portal opened February 10th and closed February 24th. The board and administration only very subjectively, broadly, and vaguely mentioned their opinion that there is overall public support. Despite many requests to present or share the data to back these claims, none was provided. A $275 FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, was required to get this data. If you are so confident in your position, then one would expect the board to happily and openly, with full transparency and analytical clarity, publicly present this data to explain and justify your conclusions. According to administration, there is strong support and only, quote, some opposition. According to the board, there was no strong opposition because, and I quote, "That's not the feedback that I've certainly received in phone calls, emails, messages, all the different kinds of ways that people have reached out to me." If the trustees and administration would have used the data from the public consultation portal as intended, they would have had to change their conclusions on public support for RAD 65 because in reality the data indicates the opposite to their apparently biased, subjective comments, and decisively so. Of the 400 responses provided through the FOIA request, 140 were for and 260 were against. In other words, a strong majority of 2/3 do not support RAD 65 as written. Many were extremely clear and specific that boys are boys, girls are girls, and they are to remain separate in their spaces and sports for their privacy, safety, and overall physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Of particular interest is the data trend that developed over the mere 2 weeks this regulation portal was open. Initial responses were leaning to be for this gender-obsessed regulation, perhaps because those supporting it were already aware of this portal opening ahead of the general public. In any case, within days, the script flipped. By February 19th, the response curves intersected at 124 counts. From that point on, the for count only gained another 16 responses, whereas the against count quickly rose to gain another 136 responses, 6 times more before the portal closed. Projecting this data trend out as if the public consultation portal remained open for another 2 weeks or even a total of 2 months, the result of what was obviously a linear trend line would have been 8 or 9 out of 10 against RAD 65. This isn't some opposition, this is extremely strong opposition. Was the board unwilling and or incapable of doing the work to report accurately on the public feedback that is overwhelmingly against RAD 65? Or is the board perhaps so severely biased that not only did they conceal this data and these results, but with utter contempt and vicious dismissal of the public, they ignorantly and arrogantly forged ahead with RAD 65? It seems irrefutable that this board does not care about their constituents as they willfully ignore the best interests of parents and children, the consenting authority, and the students, who do not want secrets kept from parents, nor gender-confused boys or girls forcing their will on other kids who just want to go to school and not be embroiled in adults using them for their selfish ambitions and political agendas. You've been caught in corruption and or incompetence. What will you do? Repeal RAD 65 as the public consultation demands, or continue down this dark road of destruction that attempts to lay waste our youngest generations by robbing innocence from children and destroying their minds, bodies, hearts, and souls while attempting to usurp the rightful parental authority from their father and mother. May God have mercy and give us grace to turn to him in this desperate hour of need for our children and parents.
Thank you, Mr. Pelko. Any questions of clarification? No? Thank you very much. Have a good day.
I'd be happy to share my analysis with you if you guys want to compare notes.
No, thank you. We have nothing in staff reports. New business is a policy and regulation for inclement weather, emergency school closings, and transportation. The recommendation is before you. Does it have support? Trustee Cook? A question from Trustee Burgess.
I have a few questions, and I just want to make sure that for the change, so I understand. On page 5, our page 5 of the policy, it states, number 1, that each school be in session and that each employee be in attendance at his or her duties each school day. I just want to make sure whether or not anything has changed. Can you be at your duties at the closest school, or is it at the home school? I'm not sure if the policy has changed in that regard. There was a time there during, I think it was winters of polar vortex. To administration, through you, Madam Chair.
So you're saying page 5, number 1?
Page 5, number 1. And it doesn't have to be an answer right now, but I wondered if it had changed because the way it's worded, at his or her duties each school day, that can happen at different venues. I just wanted to know if there was a change because there was a time, and I'm remembering it as the polar vortex days, where it was difficult for some folks to, just because of the blizzards and the clearing and the timing and all that, they could get to the closest school maybe, but maybe not the one that they normally commute to.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm not 100% positive. I think we're not clear. I'll say that. I think the intent, though, is that people are reporting to their regular work location. And if they have an issue with that, they would speak with their direct supervisor, which would be the principal.
So through you, Madam Chair, yes. Staff are required to report to their work location to make every attempt to get there. And part of that is because of supervision. So, for example, if you had a whole bunch of people reporting to one school and a whole bunch of people not reporting to another school, we would have inadequate supervision. So this way it's managed building by building. And then later on in the day, they're to make another attempt if at all possible. And that all works through the Human Resources Department to eventually it comes to an inclement weather day because they wouldn't be able to report.
Okay, and I asked that because further on in number 5, it says, and this is one of the things, you could live in an area where your schools are open and commute to an area that schools are closed, and it might be a difficult way of getting there, et cetera, because in number 5, it does say it may affect only one or more of the municipalities within the jurisdiction. And so, okay. And I think leaving the language like that is fine. I didn't know if there's anything in language, you know what I mean, that required it. So I'll leave it as a rhetorical question, and thanks for the answer. I think we cleared that up. There's something else.
With that, the recommendation moves forward?
Uh,
Or do you have more?
there was something else I note, and I think that might be it. Nope, that's it. Thank you.
So it's been supported by Trustee Cook, Trustee Burgess. All in support, the recommendation goes to the board. With that, we have the recommendation that I didn't understand, CUS. It's before us. Do I have support for the recommendation? Trustee Burgess, Trustee Cook. Trustee Burgess, question?
I have some questions because there's a lot of different changes. And I want to thank, number one, I want to thank administration on our page 9. So the page of the regulation, general information. New schools will not be available for community use for the first 4 months of operation. That's a big change. I want to thank administration for making that very generous change because that has been a concern over the years. You know, community members are just itching to get into those new facilities. You know, they're so improved usually. So, and there's usually by the closing of something, a real need for a community use. So thanks for that. I'm just wondering down in the rental availability 1.8, there's B and C. Facility Services Department will contact the school principal for permission for these requests. Does it sometimes go to their designate? Do we have to mention that? Can we just assume that?
Through you, Madam Chair, I mean, we have a rental department that reports, that's part of facility services, so it would just naturally flow through that rental department.
Question. This one's, I think, a big change, and it concerns me somewhat. Page 11, that's page 3 of 12 of the reg. It's 2.2. And I'm wondering if it's a change that we're now getting, because I want to know what it's for. School principals must contact the rental office to schedule a school event other than board's scheduled professional development and or parent-teacher interviews evenings, or for other unforeseen circumstances that require the use of a rented space. And schools may be subject to costs at cost recovery. And I'm wondering if it's for a school event, why would we charge our schools for a school event, even if it's unforeseen? I can see it if it's like a third-party thing, and then they invoice a third party, but are we just trying to, I don't know. To me, it's like sabotaging our own budget, or is it to prevent schools from saying, oh, please don't make another school event because that means, you know, you have to pay for your own custodial or whatever.
So thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair. Schools have the ability, or they have their spaces are available to them every day of the week to use up till 6 p.m. So that's often where they'll do their extracurricular activities, sports, etc. A lot of times we have joint use agreements with municipal partners, so we're trying to make sure that principals are mindful that we have outside groups that will rent those spaces. Those outside groups do pay cost recovery. They pay for custodial, they pay for security. I think when it comes to charging a school, because when you get to something like security, that's a third-party cost. We don't have security guards here at the school that are employees. So someone needs to pay for that cost, and if the school is hosting a play or an event, potentially maybe they're charging for a ticket, they're hosting book fair, whatever that looks like, and potentially they're recovering receipts from that, then the thinking has always been that for those third-party type costs that we wouldn't normally incur, that the school would be charged that.
Thank you for that. As somebody who had to pay for that, I understand that. I thank you for that. And I like that it's a may, because there may be some instance where it's unforeseen, but it's really a school event that needs to take place and maybe bump something. And hopefully we have those great relationships in, with our municipalities or whomever we have the joint agreement with. So I appreciate that. Same thing, I have another question, same thing about the summer school. So our summer schools, we run them ourselves, isn't the way I read it, are we, again, just assigning extra costs to a budget line in a summer school line? Is that what we're doing? It's our own cost, so our own revenue, and we're paying for it. So
I'll start through you, Madam Chair, and then Superintendent Armstrong can add. I think that this is more of a piece for us in terms of financial reporting, so that it's all the same money, right? Like school money is board money, is government money. So it's allocating it properly, because we would never have an idea. So for example, the use of a custodian would be overtime pay because they're outside of their regular work hours. So it's attributing that cost to, because you ran a play, there's additional costs incurred to it. It's all the same pot of money, but it's financially allowing us to see where those additional costs are coming from. And Superintendent Armstrong, if you have anything to add.
It's just cost accounting, right? Where you're just, that's all we're doing.
I had a little note, is this good accounting? So I appreciate that. I just didn't, you can understand why I asked. The last thing, have we banned the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages completely in all our facilities for no reasons whatsoever? Because I have a question here that says reunions, I'm going to get to that, but for no reason at any time, you can't even get a license on grounds at all.
So through you, Madam Chair, yes, that's correct. And you pointed out school anniversaries and reunions. The director is required to sign for any liquor licenses, which is a personal liability, and won't take the risk under a personal. I'll take risk as a director in certain things, but not my own personal liability for liquor licenses. And I think in our own community, we saw horrific things that happened as a result of that. And I don't think that the board should be put in that position.
So we have the recommendation on the floor. It's been passed by Trustee Cook, Trustee Burgess with all your answers. Trustee Burgess, and I'll support it as well. It moves to the board. Thank you. The last nope, it isn't. The second last recommendation is the Policy and Bylaw Committee recommend the board that the policy and regulation hospitality be approved. Moved by Trustee Cook. Seconded by Trustee Burgess, all in support. There, that one moves. The last one now, that the Policy and Bylaw Committee recommend to the board that the policy and regulation school anniversaries and reunions be approved. Moved by Trustee Cook. No questions by Trustee Burgess this time? No? Moved by all in support? All in support. That one moves to the board as well. Any trustee motion? There's no trustee motions for consideration. There's no trustee notices of motion. No announcements. We're on adjournment. Thank you all.